All right, are we live yet? We might be. So if we are, welcome to Celeste Community Banana Split event. I'm here with Pocket, uh, who helped organize it. So thanks for organizing this, Pocket.
Yep. Hello, bingo enjoyers. I still have the stream open. I need to stop that. I was listening to myself, which is terrible. Yeah, so yesterday we had mostly a little mini tournament of standard lockout with 4 advanced players. Today is going to be just a bunch of showcases of different bingo variants, showing off how those bingo variants interact with the banana split progression.
Yeah, so for those of you who aren't aware, the banana split progression is kind of a newer progression scheme that changes up the rules of bingo a little bit. So instead of the normal progression skip, you actually, after City, you have the option of going to either Old Site or Golden Ridge. And then once you complete either of those 2 chapters, then you get access to both either Resort or Temple. And then once you complete either of those 2, then you get access to Summit and Reflection. So definitely leads to some slightly more interesting routing decisions. Definitely opens up endgame much earlier because you only have to complete 3 chapters instead of 4 to reach Summit and Reflection. So it can definitely be an interesting kind of change up to the normal progression. You do see most of the time that players will opt for Site over Ridge as it is a decent amount faster, but obviously depending on the objectives that can change. So Pocket, you want to talk about what our first match is here?
Yeah, so first up we have 3-line bingo, where rather than trying to lock each other out, players just pick 3 lines on the board, horizontal, vertical, or diagonal, that they think they can complete the fastest, and so they're just racing. They could potentially pick the same 3 lines, or they could pick different ones. And I figure this should be somewhat interesting with Banana Split, because since Banana Split allows you to completely bypass more chapters than just standard progression where you just get the 1 skip, I figure that may lead to some interesting routes for 3-line, where if you can come up with 3 lines that contain absolutely nothing in chapter 3 or chapter 4, then that's going to be really fast.
Yeah, and in case we went away, this is a blackout progression, so they can go after the same objectives. There's no blocking objectives from your opponent, so it is just a pure race. Arrow is really well known for loving Banana Split, particularly Banana Split Blackout. I know he plays that a lot, and I know Banana Split is his favorite progression scheme, so definitely should be interesting to see. I know that, I believe, these 2 play a decent amount, and Isaac probably has a slight progression edge, but Arrow tends to have pretty good routing, so definitely should be a pretty competitive matchup from what I'm aware of. One interesting thing to think about with 3-line bingo is that the objective in the middle can be really powerful because that's on 4 different lines, right? Because it's on both the horizontal, vertical, and both diagonals. So it'll be interesting to see if that's an objective that is easy, then you might see that become important in this game because you can use it in more lines than any of the other objectives. The nice thing is the way the board is set up, it is set up in such a way that every line and row and diagonal actually will have 1 objective from each tiers 1 through 5, each grouping of 5 tiers. So that definitely does mean that, you're not going to see a line that has all objectives that can be completed by the end of Site or something. So that does help keep it balanced where, there may not be any one line that is significantly faster and you can just get all in the early game. So we're still waiting on the players. Looks like we should be starting fairly soon. So thanks everyone for joining us. If you're new to this stream or new to the community, we're definitely in the process of working on some beginner resources. So very likely we'll be having a new beginner orientation for new players to kind of learn the basics. So definitely encourage you to come and join that. We'll definitely announce it on the Discord. So make sure that you join the Discord to be aware of that. Really, it's a great community and anyone can join. And then also just wanted to shout out Archithon coming up. That's a great charity event run by the Celeste community where you can watch all the different players on. There are a lot of different people from the community speed run different games outside of Celeste and raise some money for charity. I believe they've raised over $10,000 the last few years. So definitely an event that can raise a lot of money and is really neat and a great way to kind of be engaged in the community, watch people play some cool games, and raise some money for some great charities. Link go check that out. With that, it looks like we are about to get started. So we are into game number one. Let's reveal the board and Pocket what you see here on the board. The first thing I noticed is I talked about the middle objective possibly being very big. Well, the middle objective is Princess and Epilogue, so I think that's probably unlikely to play a factor, which is definitely limits the number of potential lines that people can use. What do you see here?
Yeah, I mean, so in theory, Bird's Nest is not as bad in Banana Split as it is in Standard Progression, because so it's not actually specified in the chat command we have there, but completing Chapter 6 or Chapter 7 unlocks Epilogue, and the fact that Core can be used to skip a progression step still applies to that. So if there was anything in Chapter 8 here, then you could use that to get to Epilogue, but I don't think there is.
Yeah, this is honestly looking like a pretty brutal board for 3-line. Like, I'm not seeing any lines that stand out as being super quick and easy. And you got a bunch of, especially at the kind of low int level, right? Winged Golden is not something, I know the Arrow learned it a little bit, but not something that these players are generally super practiced at. You got a bunch of other long objectives, right? You got 5 gens in Summit, but it's not even in one of the lines with Bird's Nest and Epilogue, so you can't even pair those. You know, you got 8 Winged. Like, there are a lot of long objectives on this board, and I'm not seeing any real easy, clear synergy lines. I mean, you look at the diagonal, you see Winged Golden, not easy. 3 blue, 3 red is not a super quick objective. So, like, you know, 4 keys and power source on the other diagonal. Like, this is a pretty brutal board, if I'm to be honest.
Yeah, so I think what's kind of jumping out at me is, so there's 4 gems in Summit and 5 gems in Summit. So if you can get lines that include both of those, obviously you have synergy. So maybe the bottom 2 lines would be good, because that also gets you 1 key in power source and 4 keys in power source for more synergy.
I mean, the only slight thing with that is that does have both a 3A and a 5A objective. It looks like we do already have a routing divergent, right? We do see Arrow going for the all berries instead of 1A first pass, so going for that bottom left objective, whereas we see Isaac skipping that. So we do see a routing divergence already, so that should definitely be interesting.
We did see Isaac pick up the winged berry, so he may be thinking about 8 winged.
And 2 winged and 2 as well. I think you definitely would expect most people at this level are just, I know I just by default pick up that winged berry just because you never know if you miss something. So I think that's pretty standard. Yeah. But he does look like he's going for the second winged berry now. So he will be going for the 2 winged and 2, which is probably useful to have and doesn't take too long.
Yeah. So one other thing to consider is obviously in Standard Lockout, you kind of form your plan as you go. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to do as soon as you leave Prologue. But for 3-line, in theory, in order to play optimally and not waste time getting objectives that aren't in your lines, you sort of need to have everything planned by the end of Prologue. But that's hard. It's a lot to think about in 1 minute.
Yep. So we do see, as we finish Chapter 1 out, we do see Isaac with probably about a 15 to 20 second lead. And then we do see Isaac going into 2A and going for the 2A blue heart. I don't recall seeing Sight Blue on here, but maybe it's a 3 blue, 3 red, and 6 heart play in some capacity. Those are the only 2 I see where that would be useful.
I'd guess 6 hearts more likely than 3 blue, 3 red. Playing 3 B-sides is on the slower side.
And I don't see any other synergy with those blue hearts. So yeah, I'd be surprised if 3 blue, 3 red becomes relevant. So it must be a 6 heart play. Not sure I'm a huge fan of getting it right away, just given that it looks like Arrow also went for the blue heart as we were talking. So it does look like both players are thinking hearts and are now back into playing through 2A. I think 2A is probably correct. I don't see a lot in Resort or in Ridge here. I guess you have All Berries and Shine, and All Collectibles 4A, but those are both pretty slow. So we do see the cassette grab, maybe just for 4 cassettes for Isaac. And it'll be interesting to see. Given that they both went for hearts, I would definitely think there's a decent chance that one or both players are going to go for the All Berries and Intervention here to maybe go for that top line. But again,
well, but that would mean 3 blue, 3 red. So I think it's
true.
maybe more likely they're going for column 4 with the 6 hearts.
But if you're going column 4, then that would give incentive to play 4A instead of 2A. So it does look like Isaac is going for the berries, while Arrow is not.
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as the column 4, it has 8 winged berries, so you sort of want to get to a wake for that. Whereas the 4A, you just go to Shrine, get the berries, and leave.
That is true. Although you could get winged golden for 8 berries. I would not expect that at this level, but it is a winged berry.
Although it's also worth noting, I guess, if you're considering 4 gems in Summit, 5 gems in Summit, then the later Summit winged berries are also valid options for 8 winged.
Yeah. So we do see, because of the time to get the berries, that Arrow has taken a slight lead. So it looks like Arrow will have a slight lead out of here. What do you think about these players going for Resort versus Temple here?
I mean, it definitely looks like there's a lot more in Resort, whatever you're going for. Temple has Stunt Seekers 15 times and 20 berries in 5A, and I think that's it. Whereas Resort has Grabless Mess, a Mess Order, Find Letter and Pico 8, Rejoin
Grabless Shaft as well.
Grabless Suite. There's a lot in Resort.
Also, interesting to know, I don't know if they're going to enforce it, but interesting to note that the Lockout gen has swapped this to just Finding the Letter in Huge Mess, and the Blackout one is still Find Letter and Pico. So I guess nobody updated the Blackout gen with the updated version of that.
Yeah, that's just a thing. The Lockout generator is the one that generally gets all the updates.
So it does seem that Isaac is thinking top line, because we see him actually cutting over for the Theo cutscene. So it does definitely look like Isaac is looking at that first line. Again, as we talked about, I think it might be a little bit of a mistake just because of the 3 red hearts. Like, there's basically no other incentive to play any B-sides on this board. So 3 B-sides is just a very slow objective if it doesn't synergize. We do see both of them getting the Awaked Winged, and we do see Arrow going back to 1A. Looks like just grabbing the Winged Berry that they didn't grab. Very reasonable. And so with that, we see them exiting at basically the same time. And we do see Arrow, I believe that was Mess. We'll see when it comes up here. It does look like Arrow is heading into, not Mess, heading into Resort. Isaac is actually going Ridge, so he's forgoing the skip right now and just heading into Ridge. Maybe thinking berries and Shrine, 4 cassettes, 3 blue, 3 red. Maybe giving himself time to think and consider what chapter to go next.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the 3 blue, 3 red is, particularly for the top line, is that's actually really awkward because it's on the same line as 3 optional Theo cutscenes. Because if you're going for 3 blue, 3 red, you really want to just play 2B rather than 2A. But if you're going for 3 optional Theo cutscenes, you want to go to Awake.
Yeah, I mean, he did go to Awake already and get the Theo cutscene there. And yeah, you're right, obviously did not go 2B. So it looks like Arrow is just going to grab this Wingberry, which is expected. So we don't have too much insight on where Arrow is thinking right now in terms of objectives. It'll be interesting to see if he opts to do Grabless for either Huge Mess or Elevator Shaft, to see if maybe that will give away some of the info. Meanwhile, Isaac, as expected in 4A, is grabbing the cassette. So definitely a 4 cassettes play, potentially with the thought of doing 4B later. So I'm guessing he's going to at least unlock Shrine, potentially go Shrine Berries. Be my expectation here. We do see Arrow. Looks like Arrow is going to go for Grabless Huge Mess. So I'm not sure what objective he's easily going to expect to get off of that. Maybe column D with the 6 hearts, Huge Mess, Shrine Berries, Pico, 8 Winged. I can't see that diagonal being relevant with Bird's Nest and Epilogue plus 3 cutscenes plus Farewell. That doesn't seem viable. And the row with all collectibles 4 Winged Golden also seems rough. So I'd have to imagine he's thinking row column D there.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that column is one of the best for just being generally quick. I think, honestly, if I were doing this board, I would probably go for column 4, row 5, and then possibly row 4 or possibly column 2.
Yeah, it does seem that that's what Arrow is thinking. I think it does make sense because you do get the 8 Winged as a double objective, which is nice because that's a relatively long objective, but using it towards 2 lines makes it a little bit easier. I mean, you do still have to play a lot of Summit. So I'm actually kind of wondering if, given that you already have to play 5 gems in Summit, whether even that diagonal might actually be viable. Like, given it's Banana Split, you just skip Chapter 5 entirely, and you can just get, Birds, after getting 5 gems, Bird's Nest Epilogue is still a decent ways, but not terrible, and you have access to 3 Theo cutscenes with 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not as long as you might initially expect, but it's still long to go all the way to Epilogue.
Yeah,
because 5 gems is the start of 2K. So you still have 3 more checkpoints to go, one of which is 3K.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is basically, if we're assuming the Arrow is indeed looking at column D and row 5, is do they feel more comfortable with like Winged Golden to go column B? Do they want to go into 5A to get stunned, or 5B to get stunned 15 Seekers? Or do they want to go for, Bird's Nest and Epilogue along with so either, interestingly, all 3 of those actually include Farewell. So that's kind of interesting that I think 4 Keys and Power Source is probably in play for Arrow, given any of those 3. Given that he went Pico, I think that's pretty much confirmation of 2 of the lines Arrow is going for. We do see that Isaac got the Shrine Berries, and I didn't see what chapter he's going into now. Well, meanwhile, we did see Arrow going at Pico. So Isaac is now into chapter 3. Arrow taking 2 Wind and 2, probably nothing. I don't really see a line where he's using that in either of the 2 rows that it's in, but might as well take it because you have it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Obviously, there's no rule against you. There's nothing to stop you ticking objectives that aren't part of your lines. In theory, if you're being really competitive about it, you might confuse your opponent, so...
Yeah, I'm glad for our sake that they
more of a lead,
that they actually tick everything. Because you're right, in theory, you should really tick absolutely nothing, and then your opponent has no idea your progress. But that would make it a lot less fun for the viewers and the commentators. So I'm glad that they aren't taking it that seriously.
Actually, I meant more if you tick things that aren't part of your lines, then it confuses your opponent as to which lines you're going for, and so they think they have more of a lead than they actually do.
Yep.
Okay, interesting. Arrow did the Heart Warp in Huge Mess, but did not get the heart, which would suggest he's not going for 6 hearts.
I didn't even notice. And that's interesting that he went for the Heart Warp well grabless, which...
No, he's not grabless. He's been grabbing.
Was he? Oh, I thought he was grabless. Maybe I missed that. Interesting. So he didn't go grabless huge mess. That seems
Yeah, but now he's switched on grabless for elevator shaft.
interesting. So that invalidates a lot of our theories of potentially him going column D if he didn't do grabless huge mess. So maybe he's thinking column E and 4 and 5?
Yeah.
Because then you get the synergy of the stun 15 seekers with 20 berries in 5A.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have gone for it. 20 berries and 5As on the longer side, but it definitely works. Meanwhile, Isaac is grabless in huge mess here.
That makes sense, given that we assumed he was going 6 hearts and he already went berries and shrine. That I expect that. So that means Isaac is definitely looking at column D for his objective here. Unfortunately, no grabless shaft demo for Arrow. That would have been. I don't even think he's good at the regular demo yet, so it would have been surprising. But I know at the highest level that can be done. But
yeah, now this is going to be interesting for Isaac. It looks like he. Well, we'll have to see if he is going for the huge mess order, because he could just be going any percent order here. But
it does look like he's going any percent order. I think makes sense. There's nothing to indicate that he's going either of the two objectives there, and especially grabless, he may be less familiar with the mess order.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. If he was going to try to do the heart warp grabless, that is something that could very easily have messed him up, because the backtrack to the 3A heart is difficult grabless, especially if you're not used to it.
So one interesting note is that we do see Arrow playing into Presidential Suite, which I'm not sure is actually necessary. Well, I guess you still have to get to late game for some of the wingberries, so maybe it actually is. I was wondering if we could just see him, if he's going chapter 5, to just skip out early, but you're probably still going to need to complete 3, and it's actually faster than 5, so I think this is fine from Arrow. So Arrow will have finished Suite soon and be into and have late game unlocked if he wants to go into Summit, which I think I would expect at this point. Could also just see him do the jaunt over into Farewell for 1 and 4 keys and Power Source. I believe Farewell is unlocked. I think it's unlocked as soon as at the same time as chapters 3 and 5, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, because to mirror the in standard progression, it's unlocked after beating chapter 4. Here it's chapter 2 or chapter 4 because they're in parallel.
Yep. So at some point, I would expect Arrow to get into Farewell for the keys and Power Source. Looks like a pretty clean sweep from Arrow so far. So definitely has a pretty decent progress lead. We do see Isaac finishing out Grabless Huge Mess into Shaft. Looks like he did turn off Grabless going into Shaft, so we won't be seeing him go for that. So very interesting that although, they're both doing Blackout on the same board, it seems that they've taken very different routes.
Yeah, which is always interesting to see. It's honestly one of the most disappointing things I've had while playing 3-line was the time that me and my opponent picked exactly the same lines.
Yep.
Like, you want to see people having different ideas about the board.
Yeah, I definitely think this favors Arrow. I think that Arrow has slightly better routing compared to Isaac, whereas Isaac might have a slight exec. Okay, we do see Isaac get demo. It took him a couple of tries, but he does get it in 3A. So I definitely think the different routing probably favors Arrow. I think we both talked about how that's probably more the lines that we would be going for, but certainly not over yet. We do see Arrow going for gems in Summit, so we see him finishing up 0 meter and grabbing the first gem. So yeah, at this point, I'm pretty confident that Arrow is going for 4, 5, and probably wrote column E. Meanwhile, it's still a little unclear where Isaac is planning to go.
Okay, we do see Grabless Presidential Suite coming out here as well.
Interesting.
So yeah, I'm not sure what to make of this.
Yeah, I just don't see where that's going to be useful in any quick columns because either one there are pretty long objectives. I mean, I guess you could see like stun seekers 15 times for column A, but that's pretty far into chapter 5 without unless you're going that and like all but 20 berries in 5A, but
Well, I mean, you would get that in 5B if you're going column A, because you also have to get 3 blue, 3 red.
oh, that is true.
But
Yeah, I mean maybe that's the play, but then they also didn't get 1A start berries, so maybe that's a kind of change in plans. We see Arrow finishing up 500 meters here. Looks like Isaac is well in chapter 3, just deciding to go get the Theo cutscene instead of having to come back for it. I think that's kind of a mistake, just because if you're going for that, the Theo cutscene could just be your last objective, so you don't have to watch the cutscene. Although I guess they still need one more, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. So maybe it's correct just to save menuing time.
I mean, realistically, you should. Yeah, like you generally want to end on a Theo cutscene just because you can tick as soon as you start the cutscene.
Yeah, where it does look like he's now completing the 3 Theo cutscenes.
Yeah.
So
It's not that big a deal. The other thing is really like he should have just gotten that the first time he was in Elevator Shaft, but again, it's really not a huge deal because Theo is in the first room of the checkpoint.
we do see him continuing in 1A, presumably going to get the blue heart for help with 6 hearts. Yeah, I just don't see where he's going to get these other objectives. Like, I mean, it's just 3 blue, 3 red is going to take so long while you could be doing anything else. I mean, even at a fairly fast time, like you're looking at, 2 minutes each for 1B and 2B, and maybe, 4 minutes for 5B at this level. So you're just looking at like minimum of 8 minutes, probably longer by the time you factor in getting cassettes and stuff. So that's just such a long objective that is going to be difficult that doesn't synergize with literally anything else on this board other than the top line of the 4 cassettes and 6 hearts.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where if it had more synergy, including even if it didn't necessarily synergize with objectives, just if it didn't have kind of anti-synergy, so you could do it as part of just how you were progressing through the chapters. That's the whole thing I said before about how you probably want to do 2B as one of your 3B sides. So ideally that means you want to not have to play through most of 2A, so you don't just double up on chapter 2.
Meanwhile, we see a bit of an exec check here from Arrow trying to do coin skip in 1500 meters and struggling a bit. Hopefully they'll make it through now. Looks like they do make it through successfully, so we're now into the gem room, which will be, I believe this is 4 gems now for Arrow. So I expect that we'll see them quit out after getting the gem in 2500, so that they get 4 and 5 gems. I haven't seen their winged berry count in a bit, but I think they're probably close to 8. I'll have to see when they get this winged how many that is. And then we do see Isaac going into 5A. We'd expect the cassette grab and into 5B for the stun 15 seekers and 1B side there.
Yeah, and actually that's another thing where this is one can very much question the routing here, because ideally Banana Split you only want to be completing one of chapter 3 or chapter 5, but if you've got Grabless Presidential Suite and doing 5B for one of your 3 red hearts, you have to just do both.
Yep.
And that's the sort of thing which generally in 3 line you want to avoid.
Yeah, I wonder if they don't even I guess if you have Sun 15 Seekers, you would need to go 5B. I was going to say, I wonder if you could potentially go 4B instead of 5B if they have a better 4B, but...
Yeah, I mean, like, if you just want the 15 Seekers, then you go to Unraveling rather than 5B. And then, theoretically, the faster B-side would be 3B, if you're experienced at it, but...
Well, they did not grab the 3A cassette, so they probably aren't thinking 3B. And I would also assume at this level of kind of the low int level that their 3B is... I wouldn't necessarily... I don't know Isaac. I know Arrow has a very solid both 3 and 4B, but I don't know as much about Isaac, and I would not assume that most players at low int level are going to have... Interesting. So he doesn't grab the winged and then decides to quit out. Yeah, it looks like Isaac is definitely a little unsure of his route here, whereas it feels like Arrow's been very committed to their route. Now into Farewell. So that will be for 4 keys in Power Source, 1 key in Power Source, and then really all they'll have left is to go into Chapter 5 for 20 berries and 5A and stun 15 Seekers, and then that should be the match.
Yeah, and responding to chat, the reason why neither of them has letter is because we're playing 3-line, not lockout. It's purely coincidence that no objective has been ticked by both players so far.
Yep. So it looks like they'll both just be playing these checkpoints out. Like I said, I don't see much of a path at this point for Isaac to come back. I just think the 3 red, 3 hearts is going to be too long to... Whereas Arrow just pretty much needs to go and get 20 berries and 5A along with stun 15 Seekers to win after completing Farewell. I guess they still need 8 wing, but they have to be close. I'd imagine they have 5. They probably have at least 7, I would think. And then 8 would be 5A. I would think that Arrow accounted and assumed that the 8th wing would be the 5A winged. But I didn't verify that when he was in there.
Merit. Honestly, like, if Isaac had gotten letter in Huge Mess, that would only be if he was going for row 3, and you can see the objective in the middle of the board is visit the bird's nest in Epilogue. So we're pretty sure neither player is going for that.
I still do wonder if that diagonal might have been faster for Arrow. I think you could make an argument. Well, I guess because you have to go get stun 15 Seekers or 20 berries in 5A anyways, it's probably not. And I guess if you aren't comfortable with that grabless mess order, that would have tacked on. So I think this is solid routing by Arrow, and probably is... Again, I generally trust Arrow's routing. His routing is usually pretty solid. He's done a lot of Blackout, and specifically a lot of Banana Split Blackout. So I definitely expect that, kind of in terms of routing this, that he's going to have a really good sense. This is a pretty solid 5B from Isaac. I know we do see... looks like he might be a low 3 in 5B. So for this level, that seems very solid. So maybe he's got good enough B-side exec to try and claw this back. Because it is a lot of time in Farewell for Arrow. But I think the problem is that Isaac is still going to have to get into 1,000 meters. I don't know if he even stun the Seekers. He might just be going back for that.
Merit, what you're talking about is called row control, where you're competing for control of the rows. I think we have a command for that as well, but we're not playing it in this event.
All right, we do now see
an entirely different variant.
We do now see Isaac going back in to get the stun 15 Seekers. Interestingly, it's kind of interesting that we are how far into this match? We're almost 30 minutes into this match. We don't have a single objective that both players have ticked. this is not lockout, so they can tick the same objectives, but it's kind of interesting that they've gone so different routing that there's not a single shared objective yet ticked by the two players. It looks like we probably will have our first one, as we do see Isaac going back in, presumably for all berries in the start of 1A. So I do think Isaac can probably get 2 lines. This actually might end up being closer than I suspect. How many wing berries do they have? Because really all they need left, I guess they need the 2 B-sides, Binos in 4, and then the 2 B-sides will be enough for hearts, presumably. So then they would need 8 winged and Old Sight and Pico. But I still think Arrow can pretty easily get 20 berries in 5A and the Seeker kills before that. So, which is all that's left for Arrow, other than 8 winged.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think this is very much just a case of Isaac took longer to figure out what he wanted to do, and seems to have made worse choices about which lines to go for compared to Arrow. But it's still decently close.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I did talk to them before this match. I was actually hanging out with them, and I know that Arrow did say that he felt that his routing was slightly better, but he had a slight exec disadvantage. So I think he knew coming in that his hope was to kind of pick the correct route, and he has a lot more experience with... I don't know how much he's done with 3-line, but I know he has a lot of experience, like I've said, with the Banana Split Blackout particularly. So he has a very good sense of how long objectives are going to take and where he can shine. So I think you see that coming through here.
And yeah, I think that's right, because obviously Arrow has fairly recently moved up from beginner to intermediate, whereas Isaac, I don't remember for sure, but I feel like he joined the community already having somewhat better exec, such that he went pretty quickly to intermediate so he has the better execution but less actual bingo experience.
Yep, I think that is fair. So we see Arrow just continuing to collect berries, and Isaac working on finishing out 1B. So I guess the only thing I haven't tracked is how many wing berries Arrow has, but I have to imagine they either have 8 or very close to having access to 8. So I don't think that will take them too long.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, basically almost all of the winged berries are fast to get so long as you have access to the checkpoint they're in. So even if he doesn't have them yet, he can get them quickly.
Yep. So the nice thing is that both these players will actually get another chance to compete. We actually have a trio of matches between 3 intermediate players, these 2, and then Mask Bearer as well. So we will actually see both these players compete in the next 2 matches of different other variants of Banana Split. So it'll be nice to see Isaac have a chance to redeem himself and to see Arrow compete again as well. I believe Isaac is continuing on the next one against Mask, and then Arrow will come back in the match after that. So we do see Isaac going into 1B. 2B. They could probably finish out 2B before Arrow wins. So they should be able to at least get 1 line on the board before Arrow wins the match. And we'll see how many wing berries this is for Arrow as he is getting the depths winged. We do see that is indeed his 8th wing berry, so now he just has to finish out the 20 berries in 5A, stuns 15 Seekers, and then go finish off the Theo cutscenes to win the match. So, Pocket, how are you? Banana Split.
Meanwhile,
this tournament, do you still kind of like it? Do you see it as a good alternative to normal progression?
I feel like Banana Split deserves to be played more than it is. Like, obviously, like realistically, for our main events of the Bingo Bashes, we kind of want to stick to a consistent rule set, so I don't think those are.
But the fact, I think we've had more variant tournaments than normal tournaments in the last 6 months. I don't think we've even had a normal tournament in 6 months now.
I don't think it's been 6 months. I don't recall exactly how long it's been, but I guess maybe you haven't because you were in the beginner bash. I was in the expert bash, which was obviously the last one of the cycle.
That is fair.
But yeah, it's definitely an interesting alternative. I do think it's a bit more exec heavy. An argument could be made that the generator isn't as well balanced for Banana Split. The lockout generator specifically isn't as well balanced for Banana Split as it is for standard progression.
That's fair.
So theoretically that could be tweaked. I do also think it's interesting. I mean, obviously that's the reason that I set up this bingo study this way. I think it's interesting to try the progression with different variants.
I will say I would definitely like to
see. I would definitely like to see more Banana Split 3-line or Banana Split 2v2 as we had yesterday.
Yeah, I will say I competed in the last event in Banana Split 2v2 Blackout, and that was a lot of fun. There were some pretty interesting routing decisions. So it was actually 2v2 Fog Blackout Banana Split. There were a lot of interesting routing decisions. I know that me and Bullet actually ended up going 5A, 5B split with neither of us going into 3A to start, which was kind of interesting. So it was definitely a fun, and obviously I competed in the 2v2 lockout yesterday. I will say that I think Banana Split really shines the best in Blackout. I think that it makes Blackout a lot more palatable just because of how many, getting earlier progression to late game. It allows you to skip chapters a lot easier and be able to get there. So I do think Banana Split is definitely, I think it's my preferred form for Blackout, especially Fog. So I think that's where it really shines the most.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing where there's been plenty of Banana Split Blackout played. I feel like it's worth trying it with other variants as well.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Definitely interesting event. We do see Arrow finishing out the 15 Seeker stuns that will get him the victory. So GG's for Arrow. Thanks, Isaac, for playing. Definitely interesting to see two very different routing choices. I don't think it was too big a gap. I expect this would be only a couple more minutes for Isaac here. Because I don't know how many winged they have, but just a couple objectives behind for the Binos and 1,008 winged. And Old Site was all that was remaining for Isaac. So I guess I forgot. Arrow is not technically ticked the 3 cutscenes yet, so we'll need to do that. And there we go. That is game. So GG to Arrow. Thanks to Isaac for playing. Looking forward to seeing both of them in another match today. So thanks everyone for watching. Definitely hope you stick around for the next set of matches today. And thanks, Pocket, again for organizing this and getting some light onto this interesting variant.
Yep. So next up, Isaac will be staying on, Arrow will be leaving, we'll be getting in the Mask Bearer to play Strike Go, and I will be hopping off comms as soon as I think it's TNT is coming on.
Sounds good. Thanks for jumping commentary. I'll be sticking around for one more match to watch Strike Go. So for those unfamiliar, I've actually never played it, but it sounds interesting. So Strike Go is a lockout variant, so it will be standard lockout where when you take an objective, it is removed from your opponent. But also in Strike Go, when you take an objective, you get to choose another objective from the board to strike from the board where neither you or your opponent will be able to get it. So it's definitely interesting. It ends up being only first to 7 objectives, so definitely could go pretty quick if one player gets a bit of a lead. And there's a lot of strategy in thinking about as you take an objective, okay, what is your opponent likely to be going for that you can strike from the board, and kind of trying to deny your opponent synergy, and kind of leads to some more anti-synergy plays, because if anything you go for is synergy, your opponent is more likely to block out or strike from the match.
Yeah, it's so. I saw I looked up when it was first proposed as a variant, and one of the immediate responses was it feels like it could snowball pretty quickly, and so there's a risk that that'll happen. But I figured it could be interesting with Banana Split because, again, you have the kind of divergent routes. So if you want to just never enter 3A, you can get whatever objectives you're getting and remove all of the 3A objectives from the game.
Yep. So again, it could be fairly quick because it's just going to be a simple. It is first to just 7 objectives. So, one thing that I wonder, obviously we have enough crazy variants, but I wonder if strike would be more interesting if when you take an objective, your opponent can actually strike one instead of you. I feel like that might prevent some of the snowball.
That was also suggested. So we'll see how this goes, and if it's a big snowball, then maybe the next time we showcase Striker, we'll do it that way. Anyway, TNT is here. He'll be on comms for the next couple of matches. I will see you later.
Thanks, Pocket. Thanks for commentating and for organizing this event. Hello, TNT. How are you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing good. Thank you.
That's good. We just had a fairly exciting 3-line match between Arrow and Isaac. They went for very different routes, so it was kind of cool to see divergent in routes. And now we're going to have Isaac versus Mask Bearer in Strike Go. So for those of you just joining, in case they have any friends who jumped on, this is Demon. I'm with TNT. We're doing a Banana Split variant showcase this weekend. So Banana Split is a cool mod. Let me see if I can type it in chat.
The command.
What is it? Banana. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, I didn't do it right. So maybe someone else can.
There you go.
Oh, no, I did do it right. There we go. Oh, you got it. There we go. So Banana Split, as you can see, when you finish City, you get the option to go to either site or ridge. And then completion of either site or ridge will unlock Temple and Resort, as well as Farewell. And then completion of Temple or Resort will unlock Summit and Reflection.
This creates some interesting routing splits where you can sacrifice some time by going into 4A, or you could try and speedrun your way into the late game with 2A.
Yeah, exactly. It does lead to quicker access to late game than the normal progression.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder how Striker would work with Banana Split, because maybe one player can get some fast objectives and completely lock off one of the other chapters that they could be going for.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I definitely think Strike Go Banana Split leans heavily towards the player who has faster exec. If you just get a couple 2A early objectives and you just out-exec your opponent, you could block off any sort of anti-progress route and just dominate through just progress. So I definitely think that, unfortunately, I do think that there's a high likelihood that this could snowball. I know Mask Bearer, I know they're both fairly new to Bingo, but I know that Mask Bearer struggled a little bit in the routing of the match that we did yesterday. So I'm definitely I'm hopeful of it will be a competitive match, but I definitely do think this format does have the potential to snowball and go pretty quick.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, their execution is quite similar, I think.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, they should have pretty
unbalanced.
Similar execution. like I said, I know that Mask Bearer competed yesterday in the 2v2 lockout that I competed against them. And like I said, I think they're pretty new to Bingo in terms of routing stuff. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how that plays into this. Because like you said, I think the play is just get to the earliest objective you can and just strike stuff that is kind of anti-synergy and hope that you have better exec than the opponent. I think that's a pretty strong play in this format.
It's a very rushy variant. And I think something very important as well is to not show your opponent your route at all, as little as you can, because if they get hold of what your route is, they can block off everything that you're going for.
Okay, looks like we're still doing some setup. Commentators just making sure they know the proper method for being able to tick and strike objectives. So looks like they're just sorting all that out and making sure that we are good to go. And we should get started here in a couple of minutes. Have you ever actually played Strike Go TNT?
I have once, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fun. It became very snowbally.
Yeah.
Because once my opponent knew my route, and I had wasted some blocks on some very useless things, then I was going into 5A, and 5A cassette got immediately blocked off, and so on, and I just couldn't play with the route I was planning on, leading to my opponent getting more ticks, and I'm still getting nothing, because I keep getting knocked out.
Yeah, that's why I really think interesting version of this, and maybe something I'll have to see if someone wants to try sometime, is actually inverse Strike Go, where when you get objective, your opponent gets strike one. I think that would be really interesting, because I think that would eliminate a lot of the snowballing problems, but that'll be, I guess, a variant we'll have to throw on the board to try another day. And it looks like we are hopefully about to get started. So again, as a reminder, this is Strike Go, so that means when you take an objective, another one gets removed from the board. So there's actually first to 7 objectives will win, because there will only be a total of 13 objectives claimable. So first to 7 will win this game.
We are here. Players on the screen now. Everyone is ready. We're about to reveal the board.
All right, let's reveal and see what we have. So in terms of early objectives, I see, let's see, the tier 1 is probably all berries and crossing. We got Old Site Blue.
1 up in 2A.
1 up in 2A. We also have 2 seeded berries. I guess that's not that early, but yeah, 1 up in 2A, Letter and Huge Mess, berries and crossing, Old Site Blue, and 4 winged look to be the first 5 tiers. So
2A looks pretty good here. I'm not sure. I don't immediately see much in 4A, really, apart from all berries and start of 4A. So it's unlikely that we see players going there.
Yeah, I definitely expect we'd see Site. One interesting thing, if you think you're slightly behind in exec, I could actually see going for if your opponent doesn't tick it, I could see going for Old Site Blue and blocking 1 up in 2A and hoping that will let you kind of catch back up and get an objective lead. Hang on. It looks like we may be having some tech issues, unfortunately. So it looks like we may have to restart this board. Unfortunately, Mask Bearer just had some sort of tech issue with his Celeste, so looks like we may not be getting that board.
It looked quite interesting.
It did. It definitely looked like pretty 2A dominant, but...
Yeah. That is fine. We'll be getting new board.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of interesting, just thinking about the early objectives. A lot of times, on that board, as I look at it, I see, Old Site Blue and maybe 1 up in 2A. I think you can almost get the one that's a little bit longer and maybe a little more out of the way that you wouldn't normally get in Lockout. but you can get it and then try and time the strike. You time the tick and the strike such that your opponent spends more time getting, the later objective, and then hope to get the advantage lead without giving up that second objective.
Yeah.
You can definitely see that with the Waked Winged. I think that's one that a lot of players will just get by default, but if you expect your opponent's going for that, you might be able to actually strike that from the board.
Yeah, I think some objectives that are normally seen as bait early game may not be here, because objectives are more valuable in this variant than they are in a normal lockout match. So something like Fear and Crossing, which would normally disadvantage you quite a bit for early game, and maybe set you back around 20 seconds, may be good here, because it's twice as valuable, really.
Yeah, completely agreed. I think, and really any synergies just become a lot less valuable in Strike Go. So really, I think the name of the game is just what's the fastest objective. Like that's all you like. You don't really want to be worrying about what synergizes nearly as much. So
a new board here. Oh, I see 1-up in 1A, 1-up in 4A, and 1-up in 2 chapters.
Yeah, again, as we talked about, that definitely is a synergy thing, right? Because if I'm someone and I see a 1-up in 1A tick, I'm going to go immediately grab Old Site Blue and block off either 1-up in 4A or 1-up in 2 chapters to at least prevent the 3 early objectives and block that synergy.
Yeah. If you see your opponent picking a 1-up, you may want to be focusing on, like, anti-synergying that.
Yep. I do see, so this board definitely looks a little more interesting in terms of routing, in terms of 2A versus 4A. Because in addition to the 1-up in 4A, we do also see all berries in Shrine.
And Golden Ridge Blue Heart.
So this is one I definitely would not be surprised to see at least one of the two players enter into Ridge rather than going 2A. Although we do have Old Site Blue Heart, so we do have an early objective in 2A as well.
Yeah, both seem quite viable here. And also, thinking about 3A looks fairly strong here as well. I think this is a very balanced board.
Yeah, it does seem to be pretty balanced. We also have, looking at what we have, that we do have some longer objectives like complete 5B, Blue-Red in Temple, 5 gems in Summit. So we're interested to see with the strikes how much players are playing for strike early objectives that my opponent's close to versus kind of striking longer objectives that maybe I have no synergy towards.
Yeah, I think that what I've found that striking late objectives early is a very bad idea from what I've found, because it really does nothing and leads to your opponent striking more of your early objectives.
That's a good point.
Because if you're just striking 6B because you don't want to play 6B,
very good. I mean, that's definitely valid.
Strike.
Did not want to play 6B, but I agree that you're probably better off using a late strike on that rather than the early one. As someone who despises 6B, I think that's a good strike, but maybe hold off a little bit.
Yeah.
So do you expect either player to go for the 1-ups here? I'm not too sure with these two players. It is like a low int level, so not everyone is quite as comfortable with 1-ups. But
I reckon one of them will at least go for a 1-up in 1A. Maybe even both. It's one of the easier 1-ups for sure.
Do see Mask Bearer collect. I don't know if it was an intentional collect, but it does look like they collected the first berry. They are still look like they're going for it, so it looks like it may have just been an unintentional collect, and they will try to back it up with another berry.
Yeah.
And Isaac takes a death, so this could be the break that Mask Bearer needed. Unfortunately, they collect a second berry, and we see Isaac potentially doing a progress 1-up after dropping. So it'll definitely be very interesting to see how either of these players can back up these 1-ups, because they're both going to need to go for some excess berries here that you wouldn't normally go for in a standard 1A 1-up.
GSA.
Isaac
who doesn't collect here, then they may be winning the objective.
Unfortunately, Mask could not get across to that right berry.
goes for Theo and Crossing.
So
Maybe.
interestingly, both
Then-
of them went for 1-ups, and both of them failed the backups of the 1-ups. So it'll be very interesting to see how the players react to this, given that neither player
Isaac loses the 1-up.
going for it and failing this. Isaac is now still trying to continue to back up this 1-up.
Yeah, still gonna save it.
I will be pretty impressed if they're able to complete this 1-up. I think it's probably at this point. At this point, I feel like I would have just dropped this and just go for the 4A 1-up, and your opponent won't be expecting that, and then you can come back for the 1A 1-up if you complete the 4A 1-up.
Especially as these berries in Crossing are very slow, considering you have to go into a separate room. Drops the 1-up again, no! This is really unfortunate.
Yeah, so it looks like we're going to end up with neither player getting the 1-up out of 1A, so will be very interesting as we see Mask Bear completing 1A now. Do we see them going for the 4A 1-up? Do we see them going for Old Site Blue?
Isaac will never give up the 1-up in 1A.
Yeah, I think this is something that newer players do need to learn in Bingo, that sometimes you need to just give up on an objective and either come back or just admit that it's lost.
You have to get all the berries in Chasm to save this.
So we do see, and he collects another one. We do see Mask Bear now going for the Old Site Blue, so we'll get to see our first tick and strike from the board. What
gets striked? 1-up in 1A gets striked.
That is so brutal. Isaac is finally close to it just for it to get striked. I don't know how I feel about that strike. I mean, it worked in this case, but that is...
I mean...
And Isaac doesn't even collect the 3 berries he was trailing, so he doesn't even get the 3 berries out of that anyways.
Either you assume your opponent doesn't do the 1-up in 1A, or you assume that they have failed it for a very long time. And in most cases, this late on, it would be that they just didn't do the 1-up.
Yeah, I think I would have liked him to strike one of the 4A objectives, like Golden Ridge, Blue Heart, or 1-up in 4A. I think that would have been the stronger play, but...
Isaac goes into 4A, a routing split here.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I definitely expected, once you see the opponent in taking Old Site Blue, I definitely expect... We do see...
wouldn't really want to trail in 2A.
Yeah, we do see Mask Bear going to a cassette. I guess that's fine. Eventually, maybe you're going to have to do it, but I just...
Yeah, maybe for like 8 binos a lot later on. It makes sense, and 5 B-sides. It makes sense.
Yeah, so the question is now, we're going to see 2 objectives here, presumably from Isaac in the 1-up in 4A and Golden Ridge Blue Heart. So the question is, what do you anticipate Isaac now striking from the board?
Yeah, there's no more 2A objectives left.
And Isaac drops the 1-up.
Ooh.
Looks like he's trying to save this one. Let's see if this goes better than the attempts to save the 1A one. I believe he only lost 1 berry there, was able to go back and collect. So 1 berry is definitely doable for a 4A 1-up. So this should be savable without too much difficulty, but...
Yeah, just gonna have to spend some time finishing it off in Shrine.
Okay, no, he won't even need to go Shrine. He'll just get the... Oh, I guess he still needs 2 more here. Yeah.
Well, unless you go to the Seeded. And...
Seeded's hard to stick with. I think I agree with this, just going for Shrine. It's a little unfortunate, because you would probably like to get the cassette this. Oh, he dies again. Ouch.
No.
Real struggle for Isaac here. So definitely gonna be an interesting match with these 1-up struggles. So it is still
1-ups can be quite difficult sometimes, especially for players who aren't super experienced with them. Okay, Isaac's going for 4A blue. Well, the Master Bros just finished off 2A. And 10 berries and 3A gets blocked off by Isaac with the Golden Ridge Blue Heart tick.
Yeah. Okay, so he's taking off 10 berries in 3A.
Yeah.
I guess that's fine. Maybe you expect your opponents in 3A after completing 2A.
Yeah. Well,
reasonable for sure.
I personally would have liked to seen a delay for that a little bit, but it doesn't really matter too much here.
Yeah,
You don't
maybe
really
you delay
know
and
if
hope
you're-
the opponent goes into Chapter 3. So now we do see Mask Bear with the decision.
Maskbearer does go into Chapter 3,
They do still
even
go
though
into
10
3A.
berries in 3A gets ticked off. I mean, there is still quite a few on the board, like good 3A objectives like Shaft Berries, Grabless Presidential Suite, and Mess Order.
Is TNT actually attempting a shrine 1-up? It looks like they might be attempting
Isaac
a shrine
getting a
1-up.
shrine 1-up.
Isaac.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a shrine 1-up. Definitely be interesting.
Especially not an intermediate bingo. This would be very good if Isaac manages to get this though. Especially since never mind, that's the last board. Oh no, Shrine Berries is on the board here.
Just
All
seems
berries
so risky here because if you just died and didn't collect, you're losing so much time. Like, I don't know what the risk of like dying is versus just collecting, but it definitely seems like you are definitely risking it if you were to die.
You are getting 2 objectives here if you manage to do the 1-up though, realistically. And we see the tick, 1-up in 4A. Isaac's done a shrine 1-up. Incredible. Finally gets the 1-up.
Something I had on my bingo board for something I'd seen today.
Blocks off huge Mess Order.
Ooh, that's a pretty brutal tick off. I guess he really just was under the assumption that Mask went 3A, and he was correct. And now he's going to be able... Yeah, this is probably pretty unfortunate for Mask Bear.
Yeah.
Because now the closest objective is Pico 8, which is he is going for.
Pico 8 first pass?
I mean, I think here it makes a lot of sense. We talked about anti-synergy is really helpful. You at least tick 1 objective. You're able to potentially block off, but you can now block off 2 1-ups, which you know your opponent is advantaged to. So I think it definitely is helpful for Mask to get on the board here and prevent, at this point, fairly easy objective from your opponent that you know he's going to be going for.
Nine berries gets ticked, and what gets blocked off? Rescue Berry gets blocked off. Blocking off all late game objectives that the Mask Bearer could be going for.
Well, the other 2 have not been late games. I guess that was sort of his insurance against, okay, if Mask Bearer didn't go into 3A, then he's in 5A and might be going for that. But at the same time, like, I would expect 5 or just because of the blue-red heart and mirror temple. So
yeah,
I feel like I would have blocked off. If you're gonna block off Chapter 5, I think blue-red temple might have been a good one to block off.
Yeah, or maybe grab us Unraveling as well, which is an earlier one.
So we do see Mask Bearer choosing to block off 10 berries in 4.
Okay. Well, considering Isaac has already done Shrine Berries and can very easily get 10 berries in 4A, maybe that makes sense?
Yeah, I guess you don't know.
Still slightly advantage to berries.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Isaac definitely has the advantage of berries, and you don't know where Isaac is right now. But I still think the 1-up in 2 is the objective to ban there. Like, Isaac Mask can very easily go back and just redo 1-up in 1A or 2A, and so you're just letting him complete that objective, and then you can potentially ban that as your next ban. You could have banned 10 berries in 4.
Yeah, if I was gonna ban a berries objective first, I would have taken 35 berries. It's just an earlier berries objective, really.
I would also agree. That's a good point.
Takes less time commitment and is a lot easier to do on the way to other things.
So we see Isaac presumably just finishing out Chapter 4, and we see Mask Bear finishing out Chapter 3. So looking at objectives, I assume that Mask Bear is going to be going for Grabless Presidential Suite. or actually berries and elevator shaft as well. It looks like they will have 2 more objectives here, whereas I don't see anything that Isaac can get. So I think I would like Isaac to have quit out and gone for 1-up. That's basically a full objective swing if you can get 1-up, because not only can you get the 1-up, but you can block one of the other 3A objectives. And since Mask Bear's ticked Pico, you know that he's in 3A now.
Wait. Maybe Isaac's plan for blocking off Rescue Berry was to go into 5A himself, and so instead of blocking off Blue and Red and Temple, leave that for himself. Because if you block off the objective, you can't get it either. Which will work here, since Mask Bearers is committing to 3A.
Looks like they're working on fixing the slight UI issue here with the names, but we have Isaac on the left and Mask Bearer on the right in the light blue. So we do see Mask Bearer now going into Sweet. We do see Isaac going back. Let's see if he can finally get that 1A 1-up. It's not even an objective he can tick anymore, but it will still do him good if he get the 1-up in 2 chapters. I do think Isaac will win this first, and will probably be a pretty brutal lockout, as he can lock out Shaftberry's or Mask Bearer is not even going to go for the 1-up berries. Perhaps just didn't see it, or thought it would get blocked off.
Yeah, that's a very valid assumption, considering there's some fast objectives.
And we do see, it looks like Isaac has...
Grabless Presidential Suite gets ticked off. That's everything out of 3A that... Maskbearer RTMs is presumably to go to Elevator Shaftberries. Plays 5A?
Oh, so now we're going to get a 5A race. Or...
I mean, late game isn't very strong here. So you don't need a lot of progress, especially as Isaac doesn't really have any
progress. I kind of like this play by Isaac now. Like,
farewell,
your opponent's not going to anticipate it, and you're going to be able to get 5 binos in farewell and 8 binos pretty quickly. So I really like this play by Isaac. I think it gets him 2 objectives that are basically never going to be contested, so you don't anticipate either one getting blocked off. I'd love to see him delay 5 binos in farewell until he gets 8 binos. I think that would be. I don't think you really have any risk of those getting blocked off. And the last thing you want to do is tick one of them and then have your opponent get something that will allow you. So I definitely hope that he delays 5 binos in farewell until he completes the 8 bino objective.
Yeah, being unpredictable is quite important in this. Because the Mask Bearer might expect Isaac to be in 5A right now, just racing them on the same objectives.
Yeah. Mask Bearer looks as if he's going to get the cassette and then decides against it. So I'm guessing probably deciding it's faster to go for Grabless Unraveling and...
That makes sense.
Yes, the 2 Seeker kills you can get either way, but it's probably faster in 5B if you know what you're doing with them.
And 5A is... There's quite a lot of 5A left. Grabless Unraveling, you also get Stun Seekers 20 times. Which
that's true, there is...
These things are going to happen before Isaac gets 5 binos in farewell.
I'm not sure. I guess you would get... Yeah, you would get the Stun 20 Seekers. I was thinking the Seeker kills, which are a little bit longer. But yeah, the Stun 20 Seekers you should be able to get, and Grabless Unraveling. So it'll be very interesting to see what he ticks off. Unfortunately, he's going to have to make pretty accurate ticks, because I would not expect him to tick 5 binos in farewell.
Yeah, that's not a very normal thing for your opponent to be going for, but it's still a very good idea here.
Yeah, that's why I like it as Isaac, because I don't expect that would be one that Mask Bearer would be concerned about.
Yeah,
I
especially if you
guess
haven't
if I were
seen
him,
that
I
8
mean, I would
binos
probably be
synergy.
ticking off. I would probably be eliminating 35 berries, given that we know that Isaac has some berries. That would be
Yeah.
where I would be looking. Interestingly, it does not look like he's doing Grabless Unraveling. Maybe just not too comfortable with that first room.
Yeah. Or maybe trying to get the stun seekers and goes back to go grabless. You don't really
Possibly. I
know.
mean, yeah, it definitely could be an exec thing. That first room that you just passed, if you're not super confident with the strategy, is definitely a bit of a knowledge check. So it is possible that Mask Bearer just isn't familiar with the proper strategy there.
Yeah.
Because again, he is fairly new to bingo, so those are the things that even if you have decent exec, you might not just have the knowledge to know how to do successfully.
This is about to get ticked off here. And it does get ticked off. And blocks off blue, red, and temple.
That
This makes sense.
Yeah, I can see why you would do it. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Again, I don't think that's what
It's
I
not
would
the
have blocked
best.
off. It does look like he's kind of scrolling around trying to decide, so it does look like there maybe didn't have a clear plan of what he wanted to strike off there.
Yeah. From Marsbarrow's perspective, you have no idea what Isaac is doing right now.
Yeah, and
Nearly nothing has been indicated.
Unfortunately, I would expect that now Isaac, once he gets the 2 block offs, can pretty easily block off, kill 2 different seekers, which is the most natural one. And then can probably block off maybe one of the summit objectives or Grabless
Grabbers
Unraveling.
Unraveling, probably. Which Marsbarrow isn't going for, but it would make sense if Isaac assumes that he is.
So, and Isaac is. So we do see Isaac taking 5 binos of well before 8 binos. I do think that's definitely a
Blocks
mistake. What did they block off? I don't think I saw anything.
Nothing so far.
Are they just forgetting to block off anything?
Oh.
Oh, so they do go and get both before blocking off either one. And it looks like
this is not GG.
No, looks like Isaac might have thought it was GG.
Yeah. Blocks off elevator shaft berries, and also blocks off Grabless Unraveling, not the Seeker kills. Which could be.
So it looks like Isaac can't count, but sorry, well I was checking. He blocked off what Grabless Unraveling and elevator shaft. I think those make sense there too. You know your opponent has. This will be interesting though, because honestly, Isaac is a long ways away from any of these objectives.
You can't skip the cutscene, Marsbarrow.
Oh. So it looks like Mask Perro, being new to bingo, didn't realize that. I don't think he watched the other 4 cutscenes, did he?
Oh no. I remember this. He skipped the elevator shaft one and can't tick that off now. That's quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
The Theo cutscenes are at the beginning of each checkpoint, so it will only take around a minute to go back.
To make sure to emphasize in the new player orientation we have coming up, and making sure people know to watch all the cutscenes, because
yeah, very important. Goes into 3-8, yeah. Just gonna go back and watch all these Theo cutscenes.
Yeah.
No.
Meanwhile,
could be.
Looks like Isaac is just gonna go into 5. I assume probably just a 5B play for potentially trying to snipe 2 seekers, and if not, getting progress / going for 5B sides. It's actually very interesting from Isaac's perspective of what to do.
Yeah. Maybe rushing 35 berries also would be a good option.
Yeah, I mean, 35 is really the only one that he has anytime soon.
Yeah.
And
All
I
these
mean,
other
obviously,
ones
we know
are
that
very
Mask Bear
spread
isn't
out.
going for berries pretty much at all, but obviously, Isaac is not really going to have a way to know how many berries that Mask Bear has.
Yeah.
We just see Mask Bear just finishing out 5A. I presume. I'm just not sure what. Oh, probably trying to get 2 Seeker kills. That makes sense.
Yeah, gonna go into
The
rescue.
question is,
for
does Mask Bear know the Seeker kills, given that they have a fairly limited knowledge of Bingo? The question is, I know it took me a bit before I got comfortable with Seeker kills. So the real question is, do they know the optimal Seeker kills / how comfortable are they with them?
Yeah. Even when I was in intermediate, I didn't know how to do a Seeker kill.
Yeah,
So,
we do see them skipping the
Mask
first
Bear
one.
isn't getting these Seeker kills. Does he know?
He probably doesn't know how to do them, so
Yeah.
I would guess at this point, I assume TNT, if they're not ticked, it's just going to get them and playing through 5B and just win the match off of that.
Yeah.
It's definitely unfortunate for Mask Bear. I think that they definitely had a good chance, but just lacked some of the Bingo knowledge.
This is unfortunate since the Mask Bearer does have, I see, a valid win condition, really. Because if you get 2 Seeker kills, you can block off 35 berries.
Yeah,
and then you can just go summit, really.
Stuff. Yeah.
Just go
Like,
1,000.
Yeah, Mask Bear knew how to do Seeker kills here. I think they would just win.
Yeah. A lot closer than it looks, really.
Yeah. Or if they had realized they had to watch the Theo cutscenes, that would have also drastically changed things.
Yeah. I mean, it's still... If the Mask Bearer can somehow manage to watch all these Theo cutscenes before Isaac can get Seeker kills...
I think if they were going to do that, they would have probably gone right away. And the thing is, I don't know what they could really go for. Like, the fastest thing they have here is like 1,000, 1,500 meter gems, which is going to take a long time.
Yeah, and goes into Summit. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, we'll see if
Isaac just needs to get these 5B Seeker kills.
Isaac also is relatively inexperienced at Bingo, so it is possible that Isaac won't really know the Seeker kills either. I mean, he did skip the first one.
Yeah. 5B Seeker kills are more knowledgey than 5A ones.
Oh, we do see the 5B Seeker kills ticked here a little bit ahead of the stream, so it does look like Isaac will get that, and that will be GG. So definitely an interesting match. I definitely hope that Mask Bear and Isaac, both of them, will stick around and get a little more Bingo experience and knowledge under their belt. Would love to see them kind of grow. They definitely both have some good exec, and definitely would like to see that. But GG's to both of them. Thanks TNT for commentating. I'll be hopping off once the next commentator gets in, and then TNT, what do you got on the menu for the next match?
The next match will be an adjacent pair game. I get with the Mask Bearer again versus Arrowbounce. Adjacent pair bingo is you can only tick bingo objectives if they are next to each other. And hello, PocketWraith.
I'm back.
Hello, Pocket. I will hop off, let you two commentate the next match, and thanks. It's been great. Thanks again for organizing, and hope the rest of the event goes well.
Yeah. I could type the command. Don't know if I've spelled it right. Okay. This next one is a very interesting variant, since most objectives don't have very fast things next to each other, so it's going to be quite difficult to tick things. There we go, adjacent square. Variant of Lockout Bingo, where players must tick pairs of adjacent objectives simultaneously. say you have one up in 2A and two B sides next to each other, you can't tick either one until you can tick both.
Yeah. So my thinking for why this could be interesting with Banana Split was, since Banana Split is faster to get to the point of having all chapters unlocked, because you can just go like 1, 2, 5.
Yeah.
As opposed to 1, 2, 4, 5 in standard progression. It means that some pairs become accessible quicker, because like if half of a pair is a summit objective, usually you would think, oh, that's really far away, but it's not as far away in Banana Split as it is in standard progression.
Going late game objectives fairly early is going to be a lot better than it used to be in normal progression.
But I guess on the other hand, you could end up with a situation where it's like, if your route just means you do not enter chapter 4, you do not enter chapter 3, then pairs with those, obviously, you're just kind of stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, since you don't really want to be getting a pair that doesn't gain you any progress, such as intervention berries, which is some 2A progress, and then something in 4A progress, which you can't go forward very much with. Since normally in Banana Split in a normal match, you'd only play one of the two, or you'd play early of one and the rest of another. Yeah, I think this next game's we're going to be very good. There we go. Just getting the players ready. Now, the last game was the game between the Mars Bear and Isaac was a lot closer than the objectives said, really, because of the options both of them had.
Yeah, like I was worried that Strike Go would end up being really snowbally and one-sided, but it was actually quite an interesting game.
Yeah, it worked quite well. It was really good. Yeah, especially when there's a large execution difference, it can become very one-sided, but that did not seem to happen. It's nice. Okay, both players are here now. Okay, everyone is ready and we are in the game. Best progress. I agree, and we are about to reveal the board. Okay, what are the players' options here? We need to look for some early objectives that are next to each other, really. Really gotta think about this, since it's not as straightforward as a normal routing.
Okay, Mars Bear is having
Oh,
technical issues again. Apologize for this. Once again, like, it's his first bingo event, so he's not fully used to everything. So not wanting to call him out on anything at this point. He doesn't have the same experience that some of us have.
Yeah. Will we be generating a new board for this? Okay. We will be. I'll just sort this out. And then
Yeah, Isaac. The 1-up deaths were definitely unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
You did get them in the end, though. Never gave up, even when in Kaz on 1-up.
yeah, it was kind of funny because I was acting as a referee, doing the red ticks for the objectives that were getting deleted. I was sat in the bingo room listening to the stream, but not actually watching it. So it was like I was getting the radio version, and so just hearing, "Oh no, he's dropped the 1-up again."
Yeah. It's... did 1A 1-up and 1A did get blocked off, didn't it? Or did Isaac manage to get that? I don't remember. Okay, we are back. There we go. Everyone is here. And they are ready. Okay. We're going to be revealing the board. Okay. What are some early pairs here? There are some not super early stuff, but still very doable things.
So Talk to Theo in Awake and 2 Wind in 2 could be a pretty early pair.
Grab the stop 4A and Berries and Shaft potentially. City Blue and 4 Blue Hearts is also probably a synergy worth going for at some point.
Yeah, there's really not a lot of stuff that you can get the pairs quickly, aside from Theo Awake and 2 Wind in 2, I think. But there are other ones worth going for, like, City Blue, 4 Blue, because they directly synergize, especially. Maybe Blue Red City, 1 Bino in 5? Although
That could possibly
work.
Realistically,
like, you could go into 3A and get Alt Sight and Pico 8 faster.
Yeah. I think something to avoid.
Unfortunate prologue death there. Something interesting which we could see is players might end up going, like, getting an objective that they can't tick, but you're just to be ready so that later on they can just get the second objective.
That is also something you can do, especially if it's on the way to other things. Something to avoid is going for pairs that are in opposite chapters, such as 5A and 3A, like Key and Depths and Elevator Shaft, and stuff that's in 4A and 2A, which there isn't any here. But things like that.
Well, I mean, it depends, obviously, on how deep into chapters 3 and 5 they are.
Yeah.
A funny one here is get 3 1-ups in normal bingo. It would be very much an early objective, but here you can't tick it until you have 1 Bino in 5 chapters, Core Blue Heart or Golden Ridge B-side.
Yeah. Something interesting, potentially 3-1 up Golden Ridge B side and grab the start of 4A and blue and red and ridge. Could be something looking at. Because those are all some objectives that you can do either with each other or as a synergy.
We do see Maskbearer going for City Blue Heart immediately.
It is not claimable. Like what Bingo Sync says. Potentially gonna rush something like 4 blue hearts. I don't think anyone has any berries. Oh, the Maskbearer is going berries.
Arrowbounce has gotten both winged in 1A.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that they're planning on the Theo Wake 2 winged in 2.
Yeah, that would make sense. That's probably the fastest pair on the board right now.
So Maskbearer getting these random berries, I guess is just for 10 and 4?
Maybe forgets to... didn't think about getting them in the start of 1A. But these berries are very slow and usually not worth getting first pass at all. Because they're all in separate rooms and generally quite long ones at that.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb is a berry tends to be fast if you don't have to leave the room to get it.
Yeah. There are only a few really that are fast in a separate room. Especially as crossing berries are some of the slowest in 1A. Goes for the left side crossing. Chasm berries. Maybe trying to get the cassette as well. For blue, red, and city. Really not going for much progress here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is an interesting thing which was pointed out yesterday that since Banana Split kind of has faster progression, giving up some progress is potentially not as big a deal because you catch it up faster. Though we can very much see a big progress disparity with Maskbearer going straight for blue, red, and city.
Okay. Maybe.
While Arrow is getting late on an intervention.
Yeah. Maybe. Maybe plans going to Pico as well, getting orb and reaching old site, and eventually going into 2 binos and 4 a lot later on. And we have paused now for a few minutes. We'll be back soon. And Arrow Bounce has just finished here, eh? While Maskbearer is in 1B.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Maskbearer did not get the first set of binoculars in 1B.
Yeah.
Which would be one of the things that you kind of synergize with doing this early. Although, so fun fact that only is really relevant in bingo. Those binoculars, you can just enter the second checkpoint and then backtrack into the previous room to get them instead of replaying the first checkpoint. I'm guessing that Maskbearer doesn't know that.
I didn't even know that, so... Yeah. Maybe just forgot it? I don't know, or maybe just hasn't seen the synergy yet. Which would be unfortunate.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, Maskbearer is what, newer to bingo.
Yeah.
And so binoculars in particular, it's very much something that you learn as a bingo player, but as a Celeste player, Celeste speedrunner, you do not think about them.
Yeah, they're not relevant in pretty much anything other than bingo. So maybe some of the more obscure knowledge and to like an expert player, as having 2 binos in 4 and 1B be an obvious synergy, but to an intermediate player, especially a newer one, that maybe it's not as obvious at first sight. We are back in the game. We're going. Okay. Arrow bouncers. Yep, going for Theo and Awake. And likely going to go in 3A next to grab 2 winged in 2. Get the first pair of the game. Okay. Hopefully Mothbearer does get the second bino though, so can at least synergize with 1 bino and 5.
I do want to note that I think like Maskbearer's 1B strats, certainly for this sort of level, pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, definitely has speedrun the chapter before. I had some experience with it. Arrow bounce goes straight into 3A as expected. And Maskbearer does not get the bino. Oh dear. Definitely something you want to grab. Finishing off 1B now. I mean...
Maskbearer is a newer bingo player.
Yeah.
He joined and went pretty much straight to int on the back of execution.
Yeah.
Which may have been a mistake because lacking that little bit of extra bingo experience does play a fairly significant factor, as we're kind of seeing.
Yeah, I think most people, unless you're really like a top runner, are beginner for them first like few matches, no matter how the exec is. Really. But I think if the Maskbearer plays some more games and gets some more knowledge, you very easily be intermediate. Just like that little bit of knowledge as of now. And
yeah, and I think we did see there Maskbearer looking at the bingo client version of the bingo cheat sheet and just looking at where the binoculars are, which so I guess he was thinking about the binoculars, but then when he was in the middle of actually playing the chapter, he just didn't notice them because he was concentrating on trying to do strats.
Here we go, the first pair of the board, Arrow Bounce Tick, Theo and Awake, and 2 Winged and 2. And the Maskbearer seems to be definitely going for City Blue and 4 Blue Hearts as a priority.
Yeah. The thing is, I think Arrow Bounce also might have that in mind.
Yeah.
Although, well, it's hard to be sure. Like, I guess, he's gone Towels first in Huge Mess. That could just be because he wanted to get 2 winged and 2 faster.
Yeah, definitely. They're now going for Heart Order.
Yeah. I know, Chris, we're playing adjacent pair bingo, so you have to tick objectives in adjacent pairs. So Theo and Awake couldn't be ticked until Arrow had either 1 key in search or 2 ink berries in 2 chapters.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a cool variant. Arrow doesn't seem to be getting many of these fast berries in 3A. Which isn't super bad. But maybe trying to get 10 berries in 4 with something, because getting City Blue with that can be quite fast. But maybe not as fast as 4 Blue Hearts. I'm not sure.
Okay, so Maskbearer grabs the cassette in Old Sight. Is that just for 2 binoculars and 4 chapters?
Well, that's the
One
only
in
thing it can go
5?
towards, really.
Yeah.
Going for a 1-up? Never mind. Collects the berries. Yeah, the
Yeah, we do have
can
4 B-sides for later, but much later.
Yeah. I mean, at this level, grabbing 2A cassette on the way is quite useful, especially if there's any B-sides on the board, really. It's just a fairly safe thing to get.
Yeah, and because in general the pairs on this board are not very synergistic, it's potentially easier to give up a bit of time to not have to lose it later.
Yeah.
Because you potentially think you're not exactly racing anything.
No, especially as you played 1B first pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think... So my impression, based on, like, watching the way Maskbearer has been playing, is, like, he definitely has the execution to be an intermediate. It's just...
Yeah.
He just needs that little bit of experience routing and making those decisions, because a lot of this just speaks of he's not totally sure like what he should be doing at a given moment, and that's something that really just comes with experience.
Yeah, especially with playing all these wacky variants as some of your first games. Might also be quite confusing, because you don't have a lot of the fundamentals, so learning something new can be quite difficult. And Airbounce may be getting a pair soon with all berries and elevator shaft, and could go to 4A to grab a start 4A, which doesn't take too long. And also, there's quite a bit in 4A really, but not overly fast things. Just stuff you want to grab eventually. And where does Maskbearer go from here? Goes into 3A.
Yeah. No, actually, this does make sense.
Yeah.
Because he wants to get Reach Old Sight and Pico 8 to combine with Blue Red and City.
Also, it's definitely going for 10 berries and 4.
Yeah. So I was thinking City Blue, 4 Blue for that. If he was just thinking about that, I feel like it would be better to get Ridge Blue and Temple Blue.
Yeah.
Because Key and Depths is also on the board. But
Yeah, I mean,
since you want to go to Pico, this does make sense.
yeah. Pico's definitely quite good here. I mean, you could also go to Pico, quit out, play 5A, get the Key in Depths and 4 Blue Hearts, and get everything really. Because you can adjacent pair Blue, Red and City to Orb and Pico, and pair Old Sight and Pico to Key and Depth. Which could be a thing that could work.
Yeah, okay, and so here, yeah, we're definitely seeing the lack of bingo experience from Maskbearer. These berries are really slow.
Yeah.
So unless you need these berries specifically, just get different berries. Because you lose so much time going for these ones.
These are some of the slowest berries in the game. And Arrow ticks the second pair. Grab the start of 4A and elevate Shaft Berries. Probably gonna win City Blue Heart and 4 Blue Hearts. Considering the Mask Bearer is still in 3A. And Arrow already
And
has the 4A blue.
Yeah, and that's, like I say, that's
Mm.
kind of the unfortunate thing with Mask Bearer's lack of experience showing that, the berries for 10 and 4, you can come back for those, because they're not going to be relevant for a while.
Yeah.
Whereas the 4 blue hearts, you can lose that.
Yeah, something you see in newer players is something called blackout routing, where you just go for the objective that's on the way, and not necessarily a fast or good one.
Yeah,
Like, you see an
because
objective you can
a
get.
lot of
you just
players
go
will play blackout as a way to learn to play bingo, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a good place to start.
But the routing is very different.
Yeah. Like, as you saw in 2A with getting 10 berries, normally you wouldn't get 2A starter hub and like the first intervention berry or two, and just completely ignore all the other fast ones on the way. Arrow does tick City Blue Heart and 4 Blue Hearts. The third pair, as with just showing a lot more progress. And now maybe going into 1B to try and get blue and red in City and Orb in Pico.
Yeah,
Which
so
is
this
going to
is
be locked out by
this is
Maskbearer.
good for Maskbearer because maybe because
Yeah.
Arrow is going to lose time playing 1B.
Yeah.
I guess it's progress to complete 4B sides later in the game, and it's an extra. Well, I was going to say it's an extra heart for core access, but they already have 4 blue hearts, so that's not a thing.
Yeah. This is definitely going for Blue, Red, and City and Old Site and Pico. But yeah. It's going to lose multiple minutes too, sadly.
Yeah. I guess the
But
question is what do they each do after this? Because the thing is, Arrow still clearly has the advantage. He has more objectives, and he has more progress in terms of like chapters unlocked. But he doesn't really have progress to any other objectives, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, as the Maskbearer, maybe going 4-8 could be okay here. Because you want 10 berries there anyway. You got 15 in 4A on the board and 2 4B objectives. So it could be good, especially as there are binos there as well. Which you would also want.
Oh, looking at it now, I'm wondering if Maskbearer was actually trying to pair 10 and 4 with City Blue Heart rather than 4 Blue with City Blue Heart.
Yeah, possibly. It's just
Because
significant.
the other thing to pair it with is 4B. But yeah, I guess we'll see. Meanwhile, Maskbearer has continued to get Orb in Pico, probably planning for 2 binoculars and 4 chapters to pair with that later on, rather than Reach Event Horizon. And Arabounce has gone into 5A. I guess we're looking for key and depths here.
Yeah, what do you put with that? You've only got Core Blue Heart and Bottom Root and Hollows. I guess you have to go. Actually, they're both the same amount of time from here, isn't it? Probably core is faster since you don't have. Actually, does Arrow have late game unlocked?
No.
No.
Yeah, he quit out very conveniently for me to see that. But he
Yeah.
can just play Presidential Suite to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Arrow decides to play core or decides to go into 6A. If you have a good core, I think. Wait, no, it definitely isn't. Because core takes around.
I think the fact that he's now playing Presidential Suite tells us that he's going to go 6A.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Meanwhile, Marsbearer is in Farewell. I hope this is a Binoculars play and he's not just going all the way to Event Horizon.
I think it's Binoculars and Event Horizon.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's progress to Event Horizon for later in the game.
Already has Orb and Pico.
And yeah, of course, this is a point where it would be really nice if he had remembered to get the binoculars in 1B.
Yeah.
Because 2 binos in 4 chapters actually could end up being not that far off for him.
Yeah, since you've got 2 in 1B, you can get them in Farewell.
4A is fast.
4A,
I guess,
4B.
like, maybe you just go 4A, 4B at this point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because 4B is quite good here, especially as Golden Ridge B-side, you want to pair with 10 berries and 4 as Maskbearer. And you can... Blue, Red and Ridge isn't super pairable, but it's not super slow either. Remembers to get the Bino.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
I do think Maskbearer still stands, like, more of a chance than it looks like he does. It looks like this is very favoured to Arrow Bounce.
Yeah.
But, you know, Maskbearer does have progress to a few things, and he has some definite options that he can play into.
Yeah. There's some very viable things that can happen. Arrow Bounce finishes 3A, presumably to go in 6A and grab bottom root and hollows. And probably also Easter Egg Room and Reflection for later, considering you're there. So you might as well unlock Reflection.
Yeah, I mean, actually, at that point, I think if it were me, I would get Easter Egg Room and Reflection and then go back and play 3B for Blue, Red, and Resort.
Yeah.
At an intermediate level, maybe not. 3B can be every chapter.
Smuggles the jellyfish? Didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, I think I've seen that before, but I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah. Does the Maskbearer know pals or skip to get into Remembered early? Not the easiest thing to pull off.
I mean, also, I'm just realizing, like, Maskbearer should not still be in Farewell. He should have quit out to get binoculars.
Yeah.
So this suggests that he is just going all the way to Event Horizon to pair with Orb and Pico instead of 2 binos in 4 chapters. Which it's nice. You get your pair, but it doesn't get you progress to anything else. Whereas
it's not a very fast pair either.
Yeah. Whereas getting those binoculars, you'd be getting progress through 4A, 4B as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have DTS, so he can quit out at Remember, but he also could have quit out at Power Source and
Yeah.
he hasn't.
You need the double dash. Seems like Master is going for Power Source skip. Hits it. Nice. Awesome. Our air bounce is nearing the end of bottom root and hollows. I think.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I missed the start of it, so we have to just trust that they didn't go top root at the start, but they're using Bingo Client, so...
It will say.
Yeah.
I guess you don't really need the banner anymore. I guess it's going to Event Horizon fully immediately.
Yeah.
Not the best, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you still get the pair.
Honestly, I also wonder a bit if this is a case of, like, Mask expects to lose, but enjoys playing Farewell, so he's just going for that. Because this seems like a pretty decent Farewell execution for this level of play.
Yeah. Okay, and Arrow ticks off bottom root and hollows and get the key in depth. But where
Chris, no, you can't tick
now?
off 3 adjacent objectives. 3 is not a pair. You'd have to do 4.
So say Arrow has got 4 blue hearts in the corner there. You can't tick off Golden Ridge B-side on its own. Because that's not ticked off in a pair.
Okay.
Goes into 1A. 1-ups.
Okay.
This makes
3
some
1-ups.
sense.
Oh, is Arrow planning to get 3 1-ups, Golden Ridge B-side, and Blue and Red and Golden Ridge?
Yeah.
And Straight Grim in Reflection.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, this... Like, in principle, this probably shouldn't work out, because, like, your opponent could have just already been in 4B.
Yeah.
But, as it turns out, yeah...
It really isn't.
It'll be fine.
Hopefully the Master Bearer... Where'd he go from here? I reckon 4B would... Okay. I would say 4B is very strong here. Just because you can block off one of the synergies fairly easy with 10 berries and 4. And now Bounce drops the 3-up. Oh no. Leaves the 3-up and just goes to grab the cassette. Oh, the Master Bearer doesn't have the hearts to go into core.
Yeah, I mean, really, Arrow, arguably, the optimal play is to get the 3-up in 4A, except you would have to carry it through the cassette.
Which can be quite challenging.
Yeah. And yeah, Isaac says in chat, 3-up in 2A is... I don't think it's faster, but it is easier.
Yeah.
And, well, actually, yeah, at this level, it probably is faster as well.
Yeah. There's a lot less rooms you have to carry it through.
Yeah, like, if you get expert players, they can probably get the 3-up faster in 1A, but at intermediate...
Bit different. Hopefully the Mossbearer does go into 4B here. This would be good if he can out-execution Arrow Bounce by quite a bit in 4B. He does go in here.
And Mossbearer has shown that he has decent execution.
Yeah, and in B-sides as well.
So long as he does the right thing, like, there's a chance. Okay, Arrow Bounce is going into 3B.
Oh.
Like I suggested.
Yeah.
So he will get the Blue-Red in Resort Easter Egg Room pair. The Mask Bearer can be uncontested to 4B plus 10 and 4. He has been getting these berries along the way as well.
Yeah. Getting just 4A Startup here isn't very slow compared to some of the other getting 10 berries as early as possible that Marsbearer has been doing. There's no summit synergy, really. Actually, you could go to Forage and also try and go for... Oh no. You can't tick 2 Divinos and 4 anymore. There's
two Binos and 4 can't be ticked until there are no pairs left on the board.
Yeah. 1 Bino and 5 could happen from the Mask Bearer. But that would involve getting 3 1-ups, which can be quite challenging. Players this level. Okay, I'm guessing... What does the Mask Bearer plan to synergize with 15 berries in 4A? Because he is not going to win was 3B. Doesn't this make... Pretty sure the Mask Bearer has 10 and 4 now.
Probably. I don't know if he finished getting 10 berries in 1A.
Definitely did. He's like, I think he has exactly 10 berries in 1A, 2A, and 3A.
Well, he definitely doesn't quite have that because he has 44 berries total and 15 in 4A.
Oh, missing 1 berry somewhere.
And I'm not sure why he's
You don't need
now
this
continuing
berry.
to get... Yeah. Yeah, you don't need
to continue
any more
4A
berries
either.
in 4A at all.
There's Spiteful Bounce. There's no reason to continue 4A here. Unless you... Because you don't want the 2 Binos and 4. You may want it later. But you don't want it now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly hate like unlocking Old Trail for Bino access later, although like really you should have gotten the Bino in Mixed Set Room. Okay, now you definitely...
Yeah, you don't want to be here. You have no reason to be here right now. In the position he's in.
Yeah, like, as Marsbearer, you really need to be in 4B. Or I guess you could go 5A for 1 key and search, but probably 4B.
4B.
Also,
3. You can't do that. Especially with not having elevated shaft access. That's a long time commitment to get 3B. Which Arrow Bounce is about to tick that anyway.
Yeah, so at least Maskbearer won't waste a lot of time here.
Yeah, it could be worse.
I'll also mention for Maskbearer, standard advice to newer bingo players: when you exit a chapter, you can skip the tallies where it counts up your berries and deaths, and if you got the cassette and the heart.
Yeah.
And since bingo obviously is in real time as opposed to speedruns being in-game time, the time it takes those tallies to take up ends up kind of mattering.
Yeah. Especially in some early games where 10 seconds or 5 seconds can really change a game.
So Maskbearer quit out and then went straight back in, and I do not understand why.
Maybe the Maskbearer missed a berry in 3A and just needs a fast berry now to get 10
okay,
or...
that's... I mean, they're you were already in chests. Chest berries are slow, but it's still faster to get one when you're already there than restarting the checkpoint.
Yeah, 10 berries and 4 is not claimable. Now I presume going to 4B. Okay. Well, Arrow Bounce looks to be going
4B
for 4B
is
eventually.
just the better option. Arrow Bounce has 1 Bino in 5 chapters, so
you definitely
if they
want
go
that
back and
Bino.
get the 3 1-ups...
Yeah. You do want to be grabbing that second Bino though, event, just in case. It's not much of a time loss for something that may matter later on. Yeah, 4B is just... maybe it'll just be faster than core. Especially as the Maskbearer doesn't seem to be super knowledgeable about core speedrunning.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Maskbearer may also not be knowledgeable about 4B speedrunning.
Yeah. Both chapters aren't very used much, but unless you play some different categories.
Yeah, but in both cases, it's well, that's the thing. If you play 4B, it's for. I was going to say 2 objectives. It's actually for 4 objectives. 1 Bino in 5, 2 Binos in 4, 4B, and Blue, Red, and Golden Ridge. Whereas Core Blue is just for itself.
4B also gives progress to 4B, complete 4B sides as well, which may also matter later on. Because Arrow Bounces... the Maskbearer's pair of Core Blue Heart and 10 Berries and 4 is definitely protected, but it doesn't block off anything that Arrow Bounce can do. Because Arrow Bounce can still go Golden Ridge B-side and get 3 1-ups. Very easily. And also Blue, Red, and Golden Ridge and all berries in 1,000 meters, which is really just their win con.
Yeah, so that's probably how this is going to end.
Yeah.
But especially depending on Arrow's 4B execution, we could see Maskbearer get 2 more pairs in that time, potentially.
Yeah. Not gonna be enough, though. Unless something crazy happens, Maskbearer decides to play 4B instead. And locks Arrow out of some stuff. Yeah, 4B. Right, no one's gotten 15 berries in 4A and 1 key, and does anyone have 5A progress? I don't think that.
Arrow has depths unlocked.
Yeah, I think that's about
That's
it.
it. Yeah. And of course, Maskbearer has the 15 berries in 4A. So like that's what I'm figuring. Potentially, Maskbearer could finish out core and go get 1 key in search for 2 more pairs, potentially before Arrow wins the game.
Yeah.
But it depends on, well, it depends on execution and actually making those calls. Because Maskbearer also could, after core, just trail behind into 4B.
Yeah, as Isaac said, 4B probably could have been entered quite a while ago and still would have been good. Because 4B is quite good here. With 4 objectives, 5 really, that it helps with. Yeah, with the Maskbearer not having a lot of core speedrun experience, it seems. Still quite consistent 8A. Still quite good. Not too many deaths.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, both Maskbearer in core and Arrowbounce in 4B right now, I would say they're both executing pretty well, like for their skill level, in chapters which people tend not to have as much practice with.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Still quite good. It's just does not seem like the Maskbearer can win this. Is there a possible way that he can win? Do you think?
I mean, so Arrowbounce's win con depends on getting 3 1-ups, which is something you could potentially fail for a long time, certainly at this level.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the question, but I think it's very unlikely.
Some things would have to go very right for Maskbearer that are quite out of his control for that to happen.
Well, actually, no, come to think of it, no, I think it's... Well, so now Maskbearer, even if he got 3 1-ups, he would have nothing to pair it with. But yeah, actually, it's totally impossible, or very nearly impossible, for Arrowbounce to lose this, because if we arrive at a point where there are no valid pairs left on the board, and thus all objectives become fair game, then Golden Ridge B-side is an objective on its own. So
that would also be
so unless Maskbearer goes... Well, yeah, but so the thing is, unless Maskbearer goes into 4B and beats it, Arrowbounce, after completing 4B at this point, could stop playing the game and just wait until there were no pairs left on the board and then tick Golden Ridge B-side.
Yeah, that would work.
Then win. Like, I don't expect that to happen, obviously, because that would be
not be a very good thing to do.
No, that would be very unsportsmanlike.
Yeah.
But the thing is that even if Arrowbounce fails at whatever they do choose to do after this for a really long time, they still have that in the back pocket.
You can still just win off of that. as the Mask Bearer trying to go for the 15 berries and 4A and 1 key in search, not contesting arrow bounces win con at all. It seemed quite over. So there's the 1K and blue and red in 4B. Blue and red in Ridge. Yeah, now just has to get 3 1-ups. And it is first 13 still, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the Mask Bearer is going to get 1 key in search and 15 in 4A. Arrow Bouncer is going to get 3 1-ups and Ridge B side. Who's advantaged at what? Really? I think. So Mask Bearer has a lot of binos, I think.
I'm not sure. Like, so this is, again, we come back to the fact that going into core was a big mistake for Mask Bearer.
Yeah.
Because before that, like, obviously, as it's played out, it kind of doesn't matter because Arrogance is just going to win. But, like, before Mask Bearer went into core and Arrow went into 4B, I feel like Mask Bearer was more favored to the binocular and B-side objectives for the most part, having done 1B and farewell for binos.
Missing the Mask Bearer doesn't have the 1B binos, which he missed, but can go back for 1 if needed, if he knows how. Okay.
And there we see the ticks go through.
Yeah.
3 1-ups and
GG.
on the Rich B side.
The only time I'm getting 14 objectives isn't a disrespect.
Yep.
GG.
So yeah, well played to both players. Mask Bearer, if you're watching this back, don't feel too bad about this, because you absolutely, with a little bit of experience, will be very competitive, and there were like just a couple of decisions that if you'd made differently, that match could have played out quite differently.
Yeah. You both played really well. But yeah, something quite important for new players is watching back those VODs of your games and figuring out what you could have done better and the decisions you made. Really helpful thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so now TNT has to leave because, as you can see, he is in the next game.
Okay, I need to warm up. I haven't played Celeste all day. Okay.
Surely it'll be fine.
So I will leave this when the next commentator joins. Yeah. Which is...
it's Arrowbounce.
Yeah.
So
hello, Arrowbounce.
There we go.
I'll be leaving now. Goodbye.
Bye. And hello from me. Jeez. God.
So yeah, how have you been enjoying all of the banana splits this weekend?
As someone that's probably played more Banana Split than any other progression in the last few months, it's been fun. Shame that none of the I haven't gotten to do any of those really cute things that I like to do in occasional Banana Split games, but still very enjoyable regardless. Was really hoping that I could get a core into Bird's Nest one of those games.
Yeah, that might be like my favorite cute thing to do in Banana Split, especially because usually Bird's Nest is just such a white whale of an objective.
Yeah, and Banana Split makes it like honestly closer to a tier 20 than maybe even earlier than that. Honestly, I can't remember how low the reflection objectives get in terms of tiering. So, next up we have a game of Fog Reveal, which it's going to be interesting how these two approach that format, because with the way Fog Reveal works, because you don't have to check off every single objective, even with the same board, the Fog board, these two can end up with very different final boards, assuming they play to completion. Jeez. Okay. As we wait for our players to finish setting up, what's been your favorite game mode out of all the ones we've seen played so far?
So, yeah, that's a tricky question, because I feel like I possibly have different answers for like my favorite in general, but versus my favorite in terms of like how it's actually played out in the showcase that we've done.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like the Strike Go showcase actually worked out quite interestingly, and yeah, particularly because that was one I was worried would be quite snowbally, but it ended up decently close. 3-line was really good, but on the other hand, 2v2 was... I feel like the game we had yesterday was not the best showcase of like Banana Split 2v2, but it's something I'd definitely be interested in seeing played more.
Yeah, that match wasn't the best representation of anything, really. But yeah, it was really interesting. Like, Isaac and I were talking throughout our 3-line game, and it was really interesting to us that we ended up like going for 3 completely different lines. Like, we didn't have a single line overlap.
Yeah, which I was saying on comms, it's like it's always interesting to see the players go for different lines. It was funny that it took so long before you actually there was an objective that was ticked by both players. Like, we had people in chat not realizing that it wasn't a lockout game.
Oh, that... Yeah, no. I think I saw one person confusing the form, thinking that we were playing row control.
Yeah. So I guess also talking about like different variants, there were 2 other variants that I thought could be particularly interesting with Banana Split that I just couldn't fit into the event. One of which was Table Turf, and the other was Sync Out.
Yeah, those 2 do get a lot more. very interesting with the faster progression, don't they? It's like so much more of the board is accessible, like so much faster. It's going to be very interesting how the early game of this coming game plays out, because I've had some of my fog games start with quarter tier 1 objective, revealing like a tier like 25 and a tier 19. Like really late game stuff, which means that hopefully that doesn't happen this time.
Yeah, actually thinking about it, maybe I should just generate boards to make sure we don't have a corner start, just because that can screw over the players.
Oh, I should probably open the board as a spectator.
Okay, this one is not a corner.
Glad to have mentioned that before we started. Oh. It's a very good thing you re-rolled that board. I just took a peek at it and Forsaken City Blue Heart revealing 20 berries and 7A and 0 meters arb would not have been a fun board for these two to play.
I mean, 0 meters arb in Banana Split is not so bad, but yeah, it's still better to have more options.
Yep. Yeah, looks like everyone's ready. And we're off with first objective being talk to Theo and crossing. So
yep, and not in a corner. And yes, as you will note, unlike most forms of bingo, players are allowed to skip prologue cutscenes, because usually not skipping prologue cutscenes is to give you time to read the board. Here they have one objective to read.
Yep.
This is not seeded. I didn't want to take the time to find a seed, and I figured it should be fine, aside from as Arrow pointed out, just making sure they don't start in a corner. Yeah, the previous board started in a corner. I checked, so I've just made a new one. And of course, also this matchup was also the final matchup from the mini lockout tournament yesterday. So the rematch will, I guess, see if Julie can get her revenge, or if TNT.
We do see TNT going for the early 1-up. This is something that people tend to do in fog-style formats, going for objectives that they can't see yet in case that it's on the board. And we can see that Julie's now going back for the Wingberry because... Oh, and
no,
for Grabless 1A.
Yeah, because we have 2 chapters Grabless. This, as a side note, this isn't... Oh, and I guess also going for maybe just berries, maybe a 1-up that was failed.
There are 10 berries and 5 on here, as well as 50 berries. I have 40. I know how to read numbers.
Yeah, so 2 chapters Grabless is an objective you may not have seen very often because it has been removed from the lockout generator for quite some time, but once again, the blackout generators just don't get updated as often. So yeah, so far I like what Julie has done. Like, the restart chapter to immediately go for 2 chapters Grabless, with 2 chapters Grabless being the center objective. Like, that's a big deal for getting more board vision. So, yeah, I think very good decision making. Less good decision making to go for this specific berry, but I guess she gets it. That one is a bit trickier Grabless, unless you do the like wall bounce strat, which I think is quite difficult. I've never tried to learn it. Yeah, whereas I guess for TNT, since he hasn't immediately gone for the Grabless stuff, he's more likely to get more vision off of 5 winged berries first.
Well, he's now turning on Grabless for 2A. So... I will say that typically when I play Fog, I actually do not like getting the center objective unless I need to, because it's revealed already by all 4 of from 4 different sides from that also reveal a side cell.
Yeah, but I think in this case, like, it being such an easy objective,
it's like,
and
so
it gets
fast.
you access to so much more of the rest of the board. We do see TNT going for more 1-ups. So yeah, definitely a bit of a split between the players. TNT with these 1-ups has been going for more speculative things, whereas Julie has only been going for things she definitely knows are on the board so far.
I will say with both of these players going for 2A Grabless, we won't see an early 2B this time around, which is something...
But we do see Julie going for the cassette here, just in case it comes up later.
Yep.
I mean, surely the real play would have been to do Grabless 2B.
I'm assuming it's possible, but I don't think very many.
It's possible. It's honestly, most of it is not that bad. But there's one room in start that is absolute garbage.
That's basically a lot of grabless checkpoints, isn't it? I mean, a lot of grabless levels, isn't it? Like, I'm thinking of the 3A start, the one room in that the top room in the loop where you get the third key.
Yeah, like, Grabless 2B or Grabless Start of 2B is a thing which has been in Longo generators, not in more standard bingo generators, because it does kind of suck a little bit.
And he's going for the winged, which means he's probably gonna get more board vision by going into. I'm assuming he's gonna go into 3A. But once Julie's out of the chapter, we're gonna have the first bit of desynced boards where they don't have the same information as each other. And we do see TNT going into 3A.
And still playing Grabless. So yeah, this is... I mean, honestly, this is kind of part of why Grabless, like 2 chapters Grabless, was removed from the lockout generator. Because the thing is, even if there end up being other Grabless objectives on the board, it's almost always still faster to just do 1A, 2A Grabless. Like, unless Grabless 3A, the whole thing is on the board.
And we see a 3A start arb revealed for Julie, but TNT does not know that.
Yeah, 3A startup, 4 blue hearts, and all collectibles in 8A. So that'll be interesting. We do see Julie immediately going for 3A startup. That makes sense.
And we see TNT attempting the grabless winged berry and getting it.
Yeah, as with a lot of Grabless things, it's like not that bad once you've learned how to do it, but can really suck until you know how to do it. Yeah, as Creep points out, also 10 and 5 progress, and Julie has been like, going pretty hard for that as well. And she has the advantage of not having to do this Grabless compared to TNT. Yeah.
Yeah, and because this is fog reveal, whilst TNT does not know that start 3A berries are a thing and hasn't done them, he might not need to do them if he can reveal the that bottom square using a different objective. And there he reveals the cutscenes and rock bottom.
Yeah, so in general, 4 optional Theo cutscenes is something you pretty much never want to see in like any blackout variant where you are not completing the whole board yourself. So like co-op blackout or fog reveal, because to get all 4 optional Theo cutscenes, you have to go in late into 3A and 5A, where usually you would want to try and skip one of those chapters, or obviously in Banana Split you don't have a skip, but you don't have to enter them. And then Reach Rock Bottom is obviously kind of rough. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling like Julie's decisions have worked out better for her compared to TNT's so far.
Yeah, the interesting thing is Julie just ticked 3A Start Arb and revealed 2A 1-Up as one of the 2 things. So that's a bit of TNT's work paying off for him.
Yeah, so that will be an objective that once he can see it, he can just tick it immediately. But of course he can't see it yet, because the way we have this set up, our Restreamer 2kill is in the bingo room as a spectator, which means that we can see every objective that either of the players can see, but their vision is more limited. So 4 blue hearts, all collectibles in 8A, 1-Up in 2A, and use 10 binoculars. TNT cannot see any of those objectives. And with so this is a problem which can very much come up in Fog of War with doing, I was going to say speculative grabless, but in this case it's not exactly speculative, because TNT can see complete 2 chapters grabless, just not 3A grabless specifically. But you often find, even if you know how to play a chapter grabless, you don't necessarily know how to get berries and hearts and cassettes grabless. And so, honestly, in a decent number of cases, I feel like you may find that it would actually be faster for you to just get the collectibles with grabbing, or do the checkpoint grabless and come back for the other one later if you have to. And we're also quite likely going to see the thing that I sort of mentioned before, where TNT is doing 3A as his second grabless chapter after 2A, whereas Julie just restarted 1A for that. And unless grabless 3A is on the board, the amount of time TNT has lost by doing 3A grabless instead of with grabs is probably more time than it would have taken for him to just play 1A again.
Probably takes 40 berries there, and that reveals more wing berries. And TNT also takes it, noticing that he has 41 berries now.
Yeah, and it looks like Julie is... Okay, Julie is now going back for the 2A 1-Up, that makes sense. And Julie did talk to Theo in Elevator Shaft. So she is planning on getting all 4 optional Theo cutscenes instead of Reach Rock Bottom. to reveal the bottom left corner.
Yep, we just saw TNT speculatively read the letter and shaft. Wait.
Yeah, I mean
Sorry, diary and shaft, was it?
Yeah, that's always something that, like, if I'm in elevator shaft, or certainly if I'm in that part of elevator shaft, like if I've gone over for berries or cassette in Fog of War, I would pretty much always get the diary because it loses so little time if you're already there.
Yeah. Especially with having grabbed the cassette, you have to go that route anyways.
And as it turns out, the cassette will potentially be useful because 3B is on the board. So, yeah, Gynotad, I've just put the command in chat. But so the goal of here is not to actually complete the whole board as you normally would in Blackout, but just to reach the point where you can see the whole board with this Fog of War.
Yep. And like some of the benefits of that can be seen on the board right now. Like for the bottom left cell, with everything else in that corner revealed, both players know they only have to get one of the all 4 optional kill cutscenes or reach rock bottom.
Yeah, and to reiterate, the players can only see objectives adjacent to what they have ticked. So TNT can only see what's adjacent to the objectives ticked in purple, whereas Julie can see everything that we can see. Because there's nothing TNT has ticked that she hasn't.
Yep.
Now we see both players in Ridge, I guess heading for 4 blue hearts.
And TNT finally turning off Grabless.
Yeah, it's very much a thing. Like, I know when I started playing Fog of War, I used to do like so much Grabless, and ultimately I kind of came to the conclusion that like the amount of time I lost to having difficulties with the Grabless was more than I saved when there was sometimes one of those Grabless objectives was on the board. Especially because like playing Grabless often interferes with your ability to get berries and 1-ups and other things which might come up more often. So I mean, for instance, like when I'm playing Fog of War, unless I can already see something like Grabless Starter Foray, I would always do Starter Foray with 2 1-ups, the binoculars, the cassette, and all of the berries. Because none of that loses a huge amount of time, and all of it could have synergy, even if it's not specifically on the board.
Yeah. I believe what I usually do is I don't get all the berries. I get seeded, I get cassette, and I get the bino, and I get the last berry, just because I'm willing to eat the time loss when to go back for the first few berries if there's like 1-up in 4A or 4A Star Barb.
Yeah. And yeah, so as Creep points out, Julie's skipping the cassette and the bino and the seeded berry, just rushing forwards, getting the winged berry, and so I guess the So we're still seeing the thing where like TNT is going for more speculative things, which might be on the board but might not be, whereas Julie is being a lot more focused on the objectives she could actually see, and so I think she got the winged for 8 winged later, and otherwise is just going to cliff face for jump hunt and snowballs.
And I think TNT is cleaning up 4 blue hearts right now.
Yeah, which I guess this will be the first thing TNT ticks that Julie hasn't ticked. Julie also gets an extra binocular out of this.
And we see 2B and Oshiro stuns. Do we get to see how many stuns TNT has? We'll find out very soon. He has 2. And now.
So, fun little piece of bingo knowledge. If you are stunning Oshiro in 3A, it is faster to retry after every second stun. Assuming you don't miss him, every second time that he charges. If you're doing it in 3B, then you don't need to do that. But it's just, in 3A, the cycle of when Oshiro charges is not the same all the time, whereas in 3B it is the same all the time.
And TNT reveals Leather and Pico, which means that the top right corner is entirely revealed for him now.
It will be once he's gotten this. Okay.
Yep. And also check the cassette.
And I wouldn't be surprised at this point if Julie just sort of trails after him, because she's now back getting 4 blue hearts, and then both Stun Oshiro and Find Pleasure and Pico are very quick things to do. However, Julie will not need to get the Golden Ridge cassette, because she already has vision of the objectives in the bottom right corner.
Yep. And TNT is now having to go back and clean up the Ray Star Orb.
Julie is in 5A.
That demo's always fun to see.
So I guess Julie probably here just rushes to search for all 4 optional Theos. Although, I mean, optimally, you probably want to leave that until last.
Yep.
Standard blackout practice, since you can tick as soon as you start the cutscene, you can just save a little bit of time by making it your last objective. But she also wants to be here to get the Winged Berry in depths. And I guess 10 berries in 5 chapters.
I think TNT just has the last 2 berries here to take that objective.
Yeah, he got a decent number of them while grabless, but not the last 2 or 3. Okay. Looks like we're seeing a few Yasik attempts here. They don't seem to be working. Yeah, like, this is definitely a strat you shouldn't really be going for unless you are actually practiced at it. Okay, gets the little corner jump there. That's not how the strat is supposed to work, but sure. Okay, and so now I think it's TNT is kind of trailing after where Julie has already been, going to cliff face to jump on snowballs. Interestingly, contrary to what I said, Julie hasn't actually gone back into 3A to stun a Shiro. But, I mean, she can do that anytime. And from her perspective, like, doing that might reveal stuff that she will end up skipping, but we know that it actually won't. So this is going to work out nicely for her.
Yep.
And yeah, it's... I have to assume, with Julie being here, that she is going all the way to search. Like maybe... Okay, so this is her 10th berry in the chapter, so maybe the plan is just to unlock search,
And
she can still end on
Grabless
Yeah.
Lake. That's a short one. But it's a short one that Julie doesn't have access to yet, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. I don't remember if Julie actually finished 3A.
I don't believe I saw Summit as one of the chapters Julie could enter when entering 5A, so...
Yeah, no. Right, yeah, she only has elevator shaft.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's now cleaning up 10 and 5, which puts him ahead in terms of how much of the board is revealed.
Yeah, but Julie has a very smooth path to the rest of it, because I think she has all of the winged berries before late game. So, well, Grabless Lake is probably faster. I'm not sure which is faster between Grabless Lake and 500-meter winged berry.
They both have access to the 7 berries that are before late game, which means that...
Yeah, and Julie has all of them already, so she would just need to go to 500 meters or do Grabless Lake, whichever she thinks is faster for her.
Without knowing the actual times, it sounds close to me. But I think TNT is going for the 8-winged. Right. Wait, TNT doesn't see the lake option yet, so...
Yeah, so... Yeah, Julie is getting her Oshiro stuns now, can very easily go back to Huge Mess to find the letter in Pico 8. And then it's just late game objective of choice and finish off Theo cutscenes. Yeah, I guess actually this is going to be pretty close. Because I thought this was very favored towards Julie, but I didn't realize that she didn't actually have late game access yet. And so the
she
time
does now.
Yeah. But that time that she just had to spend playing the last 2 checkpoints of 3A has obviously evened things out a lot.
What is TNT going for? I guess TNT is assuming that they need the Theo cutscenes and aren't going to be able to get to rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of neat, honestly, that this game started with the 2 players taking somewhat divergent routes, but then at the end they've converged and they will end up going for exactly the same objectives, just in a different order.
And there's the search access.
Yeah. The man asking, would rock bottom after Grabless Lake be faster than Theo cutscenes? I don't think so. Because all the Theo cutscenes are really close to the checkpoints, and as Creep says, they only add up to about a minute. Especially given that
Wait, did TNT
both of them have already talked to Theo in elevator shaft, at least.
Did TNT accidentally double talk to Theo and then...
Yeah, I think... Yeah, so this is a weird glitch that can happen with the Surge Theo cutscene. And so I think what TNT is doing is he's just sitting and waiting here for the amount of time the cutscene would have taken. But also it doesn't matter because Julie has won the race. She now has full board vision.
Yeah. This board was interesting. There was not too much that required them to go outside of the early game chapters. And with that, that's our last game.
Yep. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to follow this channel and possibly join the Discord if you're interested in more bingo events in future or playing bingo yourself. We will probably towards the end of May or early June be starting up our regular cycle of bingo bashes again, starting with the beginner bash. So new players, it's a good time to get involved. The man who was on earlier is planning I forget what he's calling it, but like an introduction to bingo sort of thing for new players.
And
somewhere
I believe what he's calling it is a new player orientation.
Yeah, new player orientation. So that I think will be somewhere in the middle of May. But also before that, look out for Archithon, the Celeste Community's annual speedrunning charity event, where we will be raising money for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, and this will be an event of Celeste runners playing speed games other than Celeste, and also some more unique Celeste categories rather than the standard main game stuff that you see more often. And that will be on the 9th to the 11th of May. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. We will find someone to raid at this point, and have a good rest of the day.